The term unfunded mandate refers to regulations or other requirements imposed by a higher level of government on a lower one, but without accompanying appropriations to cover cost of compliance. Colorado Revised Statute 29-1-304.5. No new state mandate or an increase in the level of service for an existing state mandate beyond the existing level of service required by law shall be mandated by the General Assembly or any state agency on any local government unless the state provides additional monies to reimburse such local government for the costs of such new state mandate or such increased level of service.
Good morning, Teller County and everyone that watches our YouTube channel. But I just wanted to come to you today and talk to you about something that our commissioners in Teller County did. And I have Dan Williams here with me this morning. Yes. And I was so impressed with the statement that was put out by our county commissioners that talked about unfunded mandates. So most people don't realize in Colorado, we have a law that talks about an unfunded mandate, which means if the state of Colorado passes a law that has a fiscal note attached to it, that then makes counties, makes local government have to fund it, there's a piece of that could be illegal for them to do so, which means counties can actually push back and say, we're not going to follow this legislation. And that's really what's happened here in the last week or so when the county commissioners put this out. And at this point, and I'll let Dan talk a little more about it, your county commissioners in Teller County have started something now that over 30 other counties are now picking up and running with too. And the fact that we are dealing with so many unfunded mandates, it's cutting into our law enforcement, public safety across the state of Colorado, our roads, all these other issues that really impact us as a fiscal side to the Teller County Sheriff's Office. So when I have a patrol car or a unit or cruiser that travels down the road and hits a nasty pothole and it messes up the front end or lines of tires or all these issues, it has a fiscal impact to this county. And I think it would be good to talk about that, Dan.
I want to be real clear, both Jason Meixel and I and all the commissioners, in fact, all the elected officials, we follow the law. So this isn't about us not following laws. It's also not about us judging the merit of the law. Do I have a personal opinion along with Jason about half the laws I get out of Denver that we don't need? Absolutely. That's not what this is. I'll just read something to you because it's important to get it on the record. So this is Colorado Revised Statute 29-1304.5. It was enacted in 1991. Why is that important? It's older than about 80% of our legislatures. I'm sure that most of them didn't even know this existed, but we did. And it's pretty unambiguous. And what it says is, when the state increases required service levels, so they give Jason or I a law that we have to do that requires increased service levels, money, manpower, people, etc., they have to provide funding with it. Well, that's what Jason just said very well. It's an unfunded mandate. If they don't do that, following that law is optional. And why is that? I'm going to support Jason along with our county commissioners for law enforcement every time. We're going to make sure we've had a horrific monsoon season this week. We've got to go out and fix your roads. We've got to keep public safety. So when faced with unfunded mandates, these are optional. And I would leave you with this before I give it back to Jason and we could talk specifics. In Teller County, we have a lot of people on fixed incomes. You may be one of them as you're listening. Fixed income means that's the only money you have. So if I continue to raise taxes or ask for more money, you're going to have to make a tough call in your personal life. Buy less food, skip lunch, keep an older car. Well, we're doing the same thing here. And so we're very proud to have shown leadership on this along with Jason. And 2/3 of Teller County, or excuse me, 2/3 of Colorado counties, including Democrat counties, cities and rural, are pushing back. The timing of this was critical. As Jason and I looked at the special session, Colorado was about $1.2 billion in the red. And I would just tell you, it has nothing to do with the federal government. It has to do with 8 years of single party rule where they continue to give us these kind of mandates. So we're done with these mandates. We're done with following. It's a bow shot to the legislature. Additionally, for the special session, but also for the upcoming session, this rule, unless it's overturned, this law will stand every time. And we've been educated now and smarter.
And I think that's the thing, is educating ourselves too as to what the different laws mean for citizens of Colorado, and really how we deal with that at a local level in dealing with these unfunded mandates. Because I want to explain something. When the state of Colorado pushed that we had to go to body cameras, and they passed a legislation with that, that cost the county taxpayers about $500,000 up front to do that. The state, to get away from unfunded mandates, said, we'll give you a grant anywhere between $30,000 and $100,000. Well, that left us hanging for about $400-some thousand that now came out of your taxpayer dollars. Whereas I could put another 4 to 5 deputies on the road. Instead, I've got to purchase body cameras, and the costs of those keep going up and up and up. And the issue that we foresee is that a lot of these unfunded mandates, like for 003, which was the gun bill that was passed last year, are going to have an effect on us, because now I've got to spend another $300,000-$400,000 that's got to come in. So just in 2 bills, we've spent well over $1 million in impacts that we can't recoup for the taxpayers of Colorado and for our county. So that's one of the bigger issues we're finding, is that every single time, and there's a list of these that are coming out, when a legislature doesn't look at the fiscal impacts on local governments, how are we going to deal with that? Because you don't have an infinite amount of money, Dan. I mean, that's something we see. Everything that we have really comes from property taxes. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that too.
Yeah, we're not going to increase property taxes to pay for unfunded mandates. So our property taxes, as you know, are basically sent down through assessment rates every 2 years from the state government. We're always watching for the shenanigans that happen with that. But people here live in Teller County by choice, most of them, and it's hard to live anywhere now with affordability. Jason and I have talked about why are things so unaffordable here. Well, let me read you just 5 of the bill titles that we're pushing back on. And by the way, this is not an inclusive list. There are hundreds of them. But on these just that were, and the so what was, these were going to go into effect in August this month. SB, which is Senate Bill 23-166 and 2407, Wildland Urban Interface Code. Now look, he's the fire marshal. We take that very, very seriously, but you just don't overnight say we have a WUI code, and we're not talking about the maps, because we do have some flexibility on the maps that we're working, but just raising code, saying that if you're in a rural setting, which I think most of these legislators don't understand the difference between an interface of trees between urban and rural and the way we live here. You can look out behind Jason. We're in a rural area.
Well, and Dan, on that bill, the interesting thing about the 24005 in the 23166 for that wildland urban interface, that also makes a map for insurance companies to look at and really raise the excuse of we need to raise insurance levels or deny insurance. Because what they're basically saying is you're more of a threat in your local area for fires. So there's more to those bills than what I think they understood as an impact to citizens, because what's happening is we're going to either raise your insurance or we're going to deny your insurance based on these maps that are now being produced through these 2 bills, which is another unfunded mandate that's really coming down to citizens, everyone else.
Exactly, and it's a dangerous one. It's a dangerous one because Jason's right, there are predatory practices already happening right now with insurance companies. This gives them a roadmap to take advantage of our people. Next one I think you'll appreciate, House Bill 21-1286, Energy Benchmarking and Building Performance Standards. It demands system upgrades and monitoring. We don't have the staff or the budget for that. Look, I think Jason's been very clear, I've been very clear. The price of houses are expensive in Colorado because for the last 8 years, we've had single party rule that pretty much just keeps putting these demands and green energy and everything. We believe in the environment, but there are homes that are perfectly airtight up here that are 200 years old. This is about, including the other bills that we added together, about $250,000 worth of extra cost to a home builder. We're not going to follow that one.
Well, and Dan, there's another side of this one too for public safety. The problem with housing costs going so high is that now when I have a deputy that we're hiring on, so I'll have deputies from other states call us, right? Because we're finding it hard to find people that want to be law enforcement officers. We start at an average cost of $72,000 a year per law enforcement officer. The problem is they can't even apply for a loan anymore in our county because a home now rises from $450,000 to $650,000 and up. And then finding that house that they can actually live in that's big enough for a family, because a lot of the deputies that are wanting to get into law enforcement have a family, is almost impossible. You're almost talking jumbo loans, which are higher interest, just higher payments, more insurance placed on them. So the problem when you create a housing market that's so expensive, it makes public safety personnel, teachers, really hard to live in your geographical area. So trying to recruit into these areas and find deputies that want to be here or they can even stay here is becoming harder and harder because of those.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And so those are bills that, again, we could have an argument all day long about whether we should or should not have those bills. The point is, when I don't have the staff in the county, we don't have the resources, the bills call for a fiscal note, i.e. we need the money. And by the way, it seems that Colorado, the crack cocaine for Colorado is everything's on grants. Well, we're also a sanctuary state, not this county, but the state. Well, we've been given clear guidance from the feds that they may lose $18.4 billion with a B on all grants and contracts. So it's bad news for local counties. The next three, I don't have to go into a whole lot of detail. They're about IT. Look, we get attacked all the time. We're state of the art with virus control, with ransomware. We have an outstanding IT. But when you look at some of these things like IT infrastructure, imposition on standards, digital accessibility laws, demographics, we kind of know what our demographics are at Teller County. You can find them online. Not sure where we have that shoved down. And so the bottom line in all this, if you have $1 and you have to eat and you have to pay your bills and you have to put gas in your car, that dollar only goes so far. When we were young, we used to talk about stretching $1. Yeah. Well, look, we've ripped this dollar in half. And we are not going to unfund or underfund our law enforcement. We're not going to cheat our citizens of basic life, health, safety, which is what statutory I have, and Jason statutorily has public safety. We're going to keep the roads open. We don't know what this winter holds. We've escaped a fire so far but that could happen, in a week. And there are other emergencies. We're part of helping our neighbors, El Paso County, Douglas County, Park County, Fremont County. So I guess the message to the governor and the message to our legislature is stop it. We didn't wake up today and shave and look in the mirror and say we need 500 more rules this year. But that's where we're headed. I think last year we had nearly 600 rules. 2 times or 3 times the number of laws passed by the federal government. We're pushing back unless you give us money for those laws. So again, unless you repeal 29-1-3045, we're kind of done. And that's within our statutory limits. And again, we're going to keep our people safe. I would say that we wrote this letter. It's not an in-your-eye letter. We call for bipartisan work. We'd like to work with the governor and the legislature. We'd like to take a look at these unfunded mandates and then either repeal these laws or reverse these laws.
And I think that's important for people to understand out there. There are laws that can protect us when it comes to public safety. Mm-hmm. And really, we have not been pushing back. And I think the issue is that we have to start. Mm-hmm. Because at some point, we're losing public safety on a daily basis. Everything from ambulance districts to fire crews to law enforcement capabilities. And it's a lot of these laws that are just defunding us. And I know it's a defund the police type movement here lately in this state. But I'll be quite honest, this is one of those that has that effect on us. We can't keep piling on law enforcement organizations to pay for all these things, just like 003, just like body cameras, just like the state makes us do all the training ahead of time for all these guys that we bring in. We are having a harder and harder time keeping guys on the road to be able to do things, and that's protect people. So public safety, this is a huge public safety issue.
Yeah, and I would say, to add to what Jason said, if you recall as a listener, 2 years ago, we had Senate Bill 108, and that's where we had the authority to give you a temporary mill level levy decrease, and we gave money back to the citizens. We don't have the money for this. We should probably say that Teller County is the last debt-free county in Colorado due to our fiscal conservatism when it comes to money. This would cause us really to choose between supporting Jason and supporting bills that don't apply. Look, our county still has over half of its territory that's outside of a fire district. So Jason and I are taking a hard look at that along with our cities to figure out how we address that. The ambulance district, just so you know, 2 years ago, asked for a mill levy increase, got it. And now we find out that we've had a nearly 100% increase in ambulance accidents up here with non-residents. So a third of your ambulances right now are going to non-residents as they tour through here. Happy to do that, but again, that's an unfunded mandate. So there's lots of things that they don't know at the state level that we already pay out of the goodness of our heart or because it's the right thing to do. But as Jason said very eloquently, we stretch that dollar to the point where it's ripped in half, and this is our pushback legally. And I think if you haven't read this bill, like Jason said, he's going to put it online, read it, look at it, and understand, again, we're not judging the efficacy of a bill. We're not pushing back on the senators or the governor or the House that actually wrote it. What we're saying is if you want us to do something and it's legislatively adopted, signed by the governor, give us the money for it. If not, we're not going to do it.
Well, Teller County and all of our viewers, thank you so very much, and we hope to see you again. And stay tuned. We will have Ava Flanell back to talk about lawsuits against the state of Colorado for different organizations and really what the ruling out of the 10th Circuit Court means for your firearms here in the upcoming days, which is really exciting. And then also next week we'll have Dan Gates. He's going to come and talk about some of the wildlife efforts and the wolf issues that are now going to be impacting our citizens in Teller County and across the Front Range. And he runs a podcast that's Through the Gates. So I'm excited to have these guests on, and we'll be seeing you soon. Thank you. Have a great day.